As a long-time Halo fan, I have a deep confession to make. I've never finished Halo 2.
What you say is heresy.
Being that it's been 20 years since the release of the game, I decided to finally fix that by beating the game and answering a few key questions. Would I actually enjoy Halo 2? Where does it stack up against other games in the franchise? And is Halo 2 any good? So here is my experience. We start out the game being introduced to the Covenant prophets berating an elite leader because of the events of Halo 1. Heresy, failings, and name-calling are some of the many things that the prophets enjoy doing.
Make an example of this bungler. The council demands it.
What did you just call me?
One
We later learn that this one elite leader will eventually become one of our protagonists, the Arbiter. But before that, we are thrust back into the very comfortable shoes of the Master Chief. I am John Halo. The opening cutscenes of the game really set the scene for what we are about to embark on, but they have a quite interesting parallel. Whilst on the Covenant side, aka the Arbiter, he's going through a public shaming. But on the human side of things, they are celebrating the achievement of stopping the first Halo ring. In classic sci-fi fashion, we can't celebrate things for too long because we are then attacked by a Covenant fleet, and we get the infamous line that all Halo fans love.
I need a weapon.
Right.
Ah, he said the line! He said the line! The first mission of the game has us defending the Cairo station from the Covenant boarding party. Pretty simple and easy task for the Chief to undertake, and an even easier one thanks to playing with a friend in co-op. Unfortunately, I don't think the other stations had the same outcome we did.
I don't believe it! They're retreating! We won!
About that. Oh, about that. About that. After a few combat encounters later, we stop the Covenant boarding party from detonating a bomb on the station. But hey, we're the Master Chief. We can't let this little old bomb go to waste, can we now? The only logical solution is to go and give it back to them. Diving through exploding ships, narrowly missing debris, and casually setting off a bomb inside of a Covenant cruiser is just a walk in the park for Chief, but not without giving us a great Johnson one-liner to seal the deal.
Rick, he flew pretty good.
The first 30 minutes of Halo 2 are a classic example of how you start a game for me. You start out in a very similar vein to Combat Evolved, but it's all action, it's adrenaline, and it sets up the story that we're about to embark on. It's one of the many reasons that I enjoy the Halo franchise, because on the whole, all of the openings of all of the games are pretty well done. However, I may need to revisit a few to jog my memory. Before we continue with the rest of the game, I think it's important to mention how incredible Blur Studios did with the cutscenes in the game. This was one of the standout inclusions in the 10th anniversary of the game, and I'm going to be referencing them throughout this entire video because they are absolutely incredible. They cost apparently $1 million per minute that they are on screen, and I can only imagine how much the new series that they have on Amazon is going to cost that's coming out in just a few weeks. Either way, they're incredible, but for now, let's get back to Halo. The action doesn't stop heading into the second and third missions of the game, especially when you throw the addition of a Scarab into the mix. Oh, god dang.
Whoa.
These things are always destructive and feature in multiple missions throughout the campaign, but the focus of these early levels is to put a stop to one that's destroying the city. Outskirts has us defending a checkpoint until reinforcements arrive, clearing the city streets and making our way through to the classic Halo Warthog section. Metropolis continues this trend, but only this time using a Scorpion tank instead of a Warthog, and having some pretty accurate Marines with rocket launchers certainly goes a long way. Nice shot! Whoever that Marine is on point. Thought he could. Nice shot again! You're insane. Eventually, we get to take out the Scarab for ourselves with quite possibly the hardest Halo music to date. Yeah! Take the rockets. Doing the elites. Killing them, shooting them with it. Ah, he's got a thing! No! He got me! Once again, The stellar work that has been done by Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore here is apparent, and they've done this throughout the entire franchise, especially with Halo 1, 2, and 3. For some reason in Halo 2, they went extra hard on the guitar and rock riffs, and I mean, hey, I'm not complaining. The mission ends with us chasing after a supercarrier into a slip space rupture, which for some keen-eyed Halo ODST fans will begin the start of that game. It's at this point of the game that we get an injection of something both new in gameplay and in narrative, thanks to the introduction of playing as the Arbiter. Yes, in Halo 2, my favorite aspect of the game is playing as the Elite, not as the 8-foot-tall super soldier Master Chief. We get access to all the Covenant weaponry, but the main key element is being able to go invisible and slice everything up with a energy sword. Playing as the Arbiter is a welcome addition to the game, and it's quite funny because we don't actually play as the Elite at any other time in the other games in the franchise. We do, if you are playing co-op, get to play as the Arbiter in Halo 3, but yeah, it just feels a little bit weird that we never explored this any further. It makes you approach combat a lot differently because you have invisibility, so you can get around and have like a get out of jail free card if you need to, and you can stealth your way through fights, and it certainly has its benefits. The basis of the next two missions, playing as the Arbiter, is tracking down the Elite Heretic and putting an end to their dealings by any means necessary. This includes a really fun Banshee section with kick-ass music. This music is just like so intense for the situation. Scaling a tower while fighting Rogue Covenant, and of course the return of the Flood. My only gripe with these two missions is that it can slow the game down just a little bit. It doesn't quite keep pace with the beginning of the game. Whilst that can happen in games, it only happens in these sections because the rest of the time the game continues to get better and better as we go further into the campaign. But as I say that, at the end of these two missions, we get to drop a station into freefall and have ourselves a mini boss fight to cap off the mission. We're free bird. From here on out, we swap perspectives between Chief and Arbiter. But first, we are hot dropping into the Delta Halo with Chief, an SMG, and a rocket launcher. Insert a Breaking Benjamin montage right here in this area, because having fun fighting in an old temple, it never gets old. Most of Delta Halo and Regret are spent exploring the ring to figure out what the Prophet of Regret is actually doing here. Our task is to take them down, but not without a whole bunch of resistance on the way. I'm expecting... drop some good... What the...
Cortana, the Covenant's getting nosy. I don't want to give away my position, so I'm rerouting a...
Oh, and don't forget the Chief running for his life as usual at the end of the mission. Run, Chief! Run! 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 Chief isn't the only one on the ring though. The Arbiter is now tasked with landing on the ring and doing the current Prophet's bidding. The Sacred Icon and Quarantine missions are essentially making our way through the ring to get hold of an index. Basically, a key that activates the ring. You know, Halo. I like these two missions in particular because it's essentially a Warthog section, but swap out the Warthog for a Ghost, complete with the insane soundtrack that seems to be throughout this entire game. Quarantine Zone specifically is essentially a race between the humans, Johnson and Amanda, and the Arbiter and the Brutes to get to the index first. It turns out all of this was for naught because after a brief battle, Tartarus shows up and reveals the truth of it all. The Arbiter has been betrayed by the Prophets. Who could see that coming? Turns out the Brutes have been supported by the Prophets this entire time, and there was a coup to betray the Elites and have the Brutes take over in their stead. So at the end of this mission, we have Arbiter falling to their death, Chief jumping into the water and seemingly getting pulled under, and it seems to be all over. Until we get arguably the best cutscene in the game, the discussion with the Gravemind. The Gravemind is the Flood's highest form of intelligence, and it outlines its intentions because it seems within everyone's best interests not to let the Covenant activate the Halo Ring and, you know, wipe out all organic life in the galaxy. This leads us to my favorite 4 missions in the game. The first of those is Chief Boarding High Charity, complete with scaring grunts. Uh-oh.
Boo.
Chief is tasked with taking out the Prophet of Truth because they're the leader of the Covenant, and that's what we gotta do to stop them from destroying the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, the Arbiter is also on a similar mission to stop Tartarus, the leader of the Brutes, and ultimately stop them from destroying the galaxy. Both Uprising and Gravemind are chaotic, purely because there is Flood fighting Brutes, fighting Elites, and ultimately fighting you. So it adds this spice to gameplay that you don't usually see. You can run through a lot of these sections and avoid combat and just let the NPCs fight it out. Nothing to see here, nothing to see here, boys. Good day, good day. You're essentially walking through a Covenant civil war as it's happening, and I appreciated that part of the game. The last 2 missions of the game, High Charity and Great Journey, see the climax of each character's task. Chief ends up on a Forerunner ship headed for Earth, trying to stop the Prophet of Truth, and Arbiter stops Tartarus from activating the ring with a pretty fun boss fight. Oh my god, I'm getting my gas clapped. Oy. Oh, we got him. Now this is where things get a little bit dicey and set things up for Halo 3. There is an Ark, or a portal to the Ark on Earth that the Prophet of Truth is trying to get to essentially activate all the rings. We won't be putting a stop to that until at least Halo 3. We get a badass line from Chief telling us how he's going to finish the fight and yada yada yada, and we get an eerie discussion between the Gravemind and Cortana. Then the game just ends. Sure, we get Halo 3 in a few years' time, but it's so damn anticlimactic, especially with Chief doing that badass line. Finishing the fight, yeah, we'll do that in a couple of years. For me, it's a pretty unsatisfying end to an otherwise satisfying game. You can't have a badass line like that and then just fade to black. Overall, I did enjoy Halo 2's story. It fills in a lot of the gaps for me. Halo 1 is very self-contained, and Halo 3 was my first Halo game. So Halo 2 kind of bridges that gap and fills in a lot of the blanks that I had, and I now finally understand it, despite it having an anticlimactic ending. Now with the story out of the way, let's talk gameplay, because it's arguably one of the best aspects of Halo 2. Bungie has kept the core principles throughout the entire series, from Halo CE all the way until 3, only adding subtle changes here and there to spice up the formula. Halo 2's particular brand of spice is dual wielding. This was the first time that you could rattle off a few hundred rounds into an enemy from both slots, whether that's dual plasmas, whether that's a dual plasma pistols, whether that's dual SMGs. Unfortunately though, no dual battle rifles. That would have been a little bit too OP. This was a fun addition to the holy trifecta of gun, melee and grenade that Bungie had cultivated in the first game. Leading lambs to the slaughter. How about a sticky, boys? The other nice change as well was having the faster regen of our shields, and there's no health packs either this time round. Most of the time in Halo CE, you would be spending time waiting for your shield to come back and then going around trying to find health packs. But it seems that this was removed to improve gameplay, and having played CE earlier this year, it definitely feels a lot better. It also feels like there was a tuning pass on a lot of the weapons in the game, because the Pulse Carbine was actually so overpowered throughout the game. Using this thing was my go-to, and if I couldn't find a BR, you could bet your ass I'm finding myself a carbine. In many ways, Halo 2 is a gradual upgrade from the previous entry. There's new enemies to fight in the forms of brutes that will always run towards you whenever they get their shield taken off, and that was always a different element. The Flood was that type of feeling in the first game, where you had a bit of terror when something was running towards you, and that's what the brutes do in this game. There's also new weapons in form of the SMG, which we do get a little bit of a reappearance of in Halo ODST, and there's also the brute shop. There was also a change to level design and structure in this game, because To be honest, CE is literally, let's just make the players play the game in reverse. And here, there is still the gimmicky missions like using a vehicle, banshees, warthogs, but it's spliced in between using weapons and such as you play throughout the game. And I enjoyed that particularly this time around in Halo 2. The only downside to some of these sections was having a lot of downtime. Now, I think that's down to how old the game was. For example, defending a checkpoint in the Outskirts mission, you would have periods where you're literally doing nothing but waiting for the game to spawn more enemies in. The Arbiter mission, you have a descending elevator while you're being swarmed by the Flood, and it has moments where the game just stops and you're waiting for the next thing to happen. And when you're standing around not doing anything and not shooting things, you can kind of see where the problems lie. Granted, there is only a couple of sections in the game where it does this, towards the middle and the beginning of the game. At the end of the game, it doesn't tend to do this, which is why I like those last couple of missions. The positives definitely outweigh the negatives in terms of gameplay, and I'm biased because I love Halo's core gameplay, and Halo 2 just adds to it. And I said it previously in the video, but the most surprising aspect was playing as an elite. Just giving me a cloak and a sword opens up more possibilities to get creative kills and mess with the enemy NPC. You can see this is also expanded upon in future games with armor abilities and also equipment in Halo 3 and Reach. I still have to remember that this is a 20-year-old game and it still feels really good to me, and that's a testament to what Bungie has made with the Halo franchise. With all that being said, at the start of the video I asked a few questions. The first of those was, would I enjoy Halo 2? Hell yeah, I did. It felt like old times. It felt like putting on your favorite pair of nice warm slippers. When the game's music, gameplay and cutscenes all comes together, makes me feel fuzzy in my tum-tum, and I know that I'm having a good time. Gameplay, story, despite my grievances at the end, it was a step up from what I wanted after playing Halo CE earlier in the year. And I suppose because I've played Halo a lot throughout my entire life, it didn't really feel like anything new or refreshing in any way, but it still felt good when I was playing it. What it did do though was make me want to go back and play Halo 3 for old time's sake to see if I still had the same feeling about the game when I played it when I was younger. The real question I wanted to ask was surrounding Halo 2 itself, and that was Halo 2 any good? For the most part, I think Halo 2 does a lot of things right and takes the steps forward in the series that many people would have probably wanted at the time, and it does for me at least. It improves on gameplay, and the narrative especially feels good with the 10th anniversary cutscenes. It really stepped that up in a major way. But in some way, I felt like there was something missing. I briefly mentioned the dip of the game in the middle, and it definitely feels that way. Like the middle section of the game doesn't feel like it keeps pace with the beginning and the end, and it just feels a little bit different. It feels a little bit more like CE as opposed to Reach or Halo 3, which I've had a lot more experience with. Halo 2 also hypes us up right at the end of the game, and then there's nothing. It just leaves us with more questions. And thankfully, in hindsight, we know that we had Halo 3 eventually, but at the time it would have been very anticlimactic, and I still feel that way after coming off playing it. Overall, I think Halo 2 is a great game, but the true question is, where does it stack up in the franchise? In terms of Bungie games, so the 5 or so that they've made, I think that it doesn't break the top 2. It sits in the same category as Halo CE. I understand that they are very good games, but I think that Reach and Halo 3 are pretty incredible titles. That was like the pinnacle of Bungie making Halo games. That doesn't mean those games are bad. It doesn't mean that Halo 2 is worse off compared to them. And as I said, I think it sparked my curiosity to go and play other games in the Halo franchise and maybe do a video ranking everything in the future. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Are you a massive Halo 2 fan? Do you like CE? Do you like Halo 3? Let me know. And I really had a good time making this video, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a like on it. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And as always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.